Hi guys, and welcome back to World of Tanks, and yeah, my first review in 4 months. So I'm going to be looking at the new French Tier 8 Premium TD, which I'm not even going to attempt to announce, and I'm just going to call it the AMX 105 or the CDA 105, something like that anyway. But anyway, yeah, AMX 105 with a lot of other words in there as well. So yeah, Tier 8 TD. First things first, though, I do want to correct something that I made, a sort of a statement I made yesterday, in yesterday's video, should I say, that was wrong, and it was about the T32's gun. I obviously been away from the game for a few months, missed a few buffs and nerfs and what have you. Been trying to catch up on it all, but that's something I did miss. That the T32 has in fact had a buff to its gun and now has 218 pen. So there you go. I did make that mistake yesterday, and I just thought I just wanted to mention that first. Now, again, any stats or anything that I do mention in this video are correct at the time of recording, because they do like to change things, and hopefully will be correct to my knowledge as well. Fingers crossed I won't make any more mistakes. So a little bit of trepidation over this one, because it's the first review I've done in a while. Don't think I'm going to spend too long in the garage, but then again, I always say that. So let's get started. So Tier 8 TD, when I can get to the store. I don't know if the price is in there still. It might be. There we go, when it loads up. And it's just decided to go and go slow. So, there's the primed one is still in there at 14,800. I think this was about 13,000-ish for the top pack, something like that. Without the equipment. Again, I'm not really going to get into the price on these, you know. You probably remember, I think the price on these is a bit high, especially, I mean, I know obviously prices go up, but especially from what we're paying for sort of tier 8s and stuff, you know, the sort of 7,000 mark and things like that, and the 8,000 mark, and, you know, I think the IS-6 was really expensive. Is that around 11,000, something like that, something daft, and now it's quite regular to be spending at least that on a tier 8 tank, so there you go. But anyway, what is it? Well, it's fast and it's nimble. I'm going to try and give you my best sort of views on it, but I've only got up to tier 6 on the French TD line. I got up to tier 6 and just gave up because I hated it and thought that's you know, that's a grind for another day. So yeah, I can't really compare it much to the other ones. I mean, I can give you a rough idea. I've got the tier 8 here. Obviously, this is the press account, by the way. Don't forget, you know, that's why I've got a 17 skill crew on it and whatever, and all that lovely stuff up in the top right there. So the tier 8 standard French TD gets 120mm as its top gun, so obviously you don't get the same whack of damage that you do with this. On this you're looking at 400 damage, although actually, to be fair, you'll be surprised. It's got a 105 on that tank, but you'll be surprised at the damage on it. But you get slightly more pen than you do on this. This has got 257, the new French premium one gets 260 with its APCR, and you get a much better aiming time and much better accuracy as well. And that's the thing about this. The armor, the physical armor value isn't as good as the AMX AC48. However, as you can see, it is very well angled and it is quite low. It's not got quite as good camouflage as the Yahtzee, so you know that's why I've got that there. And they were saying that, you know, it's very stealthy and what have you. So you know, there are stealthier TDs out there, but it's stealthy enough, and the good angling on the front. You can bounce a few shots, but again, it's not something you particularly want to rely on. You can a bit more when you're top tier, especially against the lower tier stuff. It can be quite trolly, that frontal armour with the slope there. But again, it's not something you really want to rely on. So let's have a quick look at the gun. So a 105mm and 5.22 rounds a minute, which, to give you an idea, or it might give you an idea, that's the same rate of fire as Borsig gets with its 128mm gun, the 12.8cm one, which is obviously the smaller caliber but the longer barrel on the Borsig. So that gives you an idea of the rate of fire of this. 260 pen, which is brilliant, really good pen. They are APCR rounds, as I mentioned before, and your premium rounds are heat, and you get 310. Now the damage is 390, which is kind of interesting, or well, unusual, because last I remembered, and I have checked a few of these just to make sure that hasn't changed as well, but usually on a sort of 105 gun around tier 8, you're looking at sort of about 320 damage, normally 320 damage, usually, on the 105s around tier 8. So 390 is quite a pleasant surprise, and obviously, as I said before, it's only 10 less than you get on that big 120mm gun on the French Tech Tree TD. So you know, there is that. It is quite nice, sort of damage-wise, nice little surprise there. And as I said, the pen, as you can see, is quite good as well. HE, again, as you can see there, 53 and 480. Aiming time for 2 seconds, which is quite nice. I've been having a look around at the Tier 8 TDs, trying to sort of familiarise myself with some more of the aiming times, because again, TDs are not my sort of forte, and again, I've been away from the game for a while. But most of them around Tier 8, you're looking sort of between about 2.3 to 2.7 second aiming time. I said, you know, that's not all of them, you know, it's just a generalisation. So a 2 second aiming time is pretty nice on this. An accuracy of 0.30, which is very, very nice indeed. That's very, very good accuracy. Your whole traverse, as you can see, 28 degrees a second is not bad at all either. View range 360, again, it's about average-ish, you know, for a sort of Tier 8 TD. TDs generally have a lower view range than the other tanks, otherwise they would be ridiculous, you know, if they could completely outspot you and annihilate you with their big guns. So yeah, they do have lower sort of view range, but again, it's about on par. Now, supplies wise, again, been a while since I've done one of these. Your shell costs don't seem too much. 1210 for your standard rounds, 48 for your heat, which is premium, and 680 for your high explosive. Now, equipment wise, I've gone for gun lane drive, you know, try and make the aim time even better, and gun rammer, and I've gone for binocular telescopes. I'm not great at picking equipment for TDs, so you know, that's just kind of what I've gone for. I'd like to be able to give you a few more tips on that, but that's just what like I said, that's just what I went for, and it worked for me. You know, you might have better equipment suggestions for it, people that are more experienced with TDs. If you have, please put it in the comments. You know, put your suggestions for equipment down there, so that, you know, give people more of an idea than I can. But like I say, I'll do my best and just sort of tell you my opinions on this. Let's have a look at some of the other stats as well, and I'll try not to forget everything. So concealment, before I get going, is 0.38 stationary, 0.23 on the move. Not bad at all. Not as good as some others, as I've said before, but a lot better, you know, than others. So again, it kind of sits in that middle grouping with the camouflage on the TD. And again, I found it quite adequate, but I'm not a TD expert. Maximum speed of 55 kilometers an hour, which is nice, and it is nippy. That is something that I did notice about it. It is quite nippy. As you can see, it's got a power to weight ratio of 26.79. and it does get around the battlefield quite nicely and quite quickly, and I liked it because it meant that I could reposition easily and quickly. You know, you don't have to think, well, I want to get over there, but I'm quite slow and I can't just go straight across. I've got to go down here and round. It's going to take me forever. Is it worth it in this? It's like, right, I need to get across there. Boom, gone. Off you go. You know, sort of dip down around something and use all the cover. You can get around quite quickly and easily. 18 in reverse, 15% chance of fire. As you can see, there is a transmission in the front, so you can take engine damage from the front. Not always, but you know, you can. As for the gun itself, 11.5 second reload time. Already covered the aiming time. Accuracy on moving, 0.52, not too bad. And on moving the gun, which is obviously rotating to at 0.68. 20 degrees of gun elevation, so no problems if anything gets above you. And 8 degrees of depression, so again, it can be quite nice on the ridge lines, and you know, you can't really grumble at 8 degrees, can you? And with that extra sort of sloping on the frontal armour as well, if you can sort of get it at the right angle and popping up over ridge lines, you can bounce quite a few shots. The commander's hatch is fairly tall, but it's not quite as much of a target as you've got on top of the tech tree tier 8 with the big rangefinder and the big commander's hatch. But again, when you're using ridge lines and coming up and over, it does reduce the sort of, you know, the visible size or the visible area that you can see of the commander's hatch, and it's got a bit of angling on the front of it, as you can see there, so it just increases that. And I've bounced a couple off the commander's hatch as well before. So yeah, you know, I have to say, I've been, you know, I have kind of enjoyed this tank. And the look of it, I've not even mentioned the looks. I kind of like the look of it. By the way, just a bit of an afterthought here. Hey, it looks quite nice. I like it. Back to the tracks. Terrain resistance is 1.3, 1.4, and 2.4. Again, you know, could be better. Obviously, light tanks have much better terrain resistances. Heavy tanks have much worse. I've found that on this, it didn't really make much of a difference. I mean, they are very similar, apart from your wet ground, your really wet ground. It does kind of feel a bit slow on that, but which tank doesn't? But your other two, they're so similar in value that you kind of don't really notice much of a difference going between, like, you know, sort of slightly softer ground and your hard ground. So it doesn't seem to lose speed as you sort of transitioning from, say, concrete or whatever, you know, onto grass and that sort of thing. And again, you know, just quite a nippy, fun little TD, and I'm not a massive fan of TDs, so yeah, I have enjoyed it, I can honestly say that. Radio just on the right hand side there. Ammo racks, yes, there are a lot of ammo racks in here. You've got one laid across just under, well, what I actually assumed was the engine deck. So you've got the ammo just above where the engine actually sits. Then on the left side of the tank, just in that front angular bit, you have a couple there. In fact, there's 3 there, you can see 3 separate ones. So yeah, it is pretty much filled with ammo in every nook and cranny on the inside. And then I can remember, I think I've had my ammo rack damaged once. So, you know, it's not too bad, but then again, I didn't take that many hits, and when I did start getting hit, it was generally, you know, death ensued pretty quickly afterwards, sort of by that point. But when I have taken it, knowingly that I can remember, I have had ammo rack damage once. Whether that's something you want to take into consideration, maybe put a wet ammo rack on it, or at least train up safe stowage. That might be a bit of an idea, because I mean, let's face it, there's not many places you could actually put a shell into that tank, and you're not going, you know, from the sides, and you're not going to hit an ammo rack. So do bear that in mind. Crew members, you've got 4 in there. You've got your commander under his cupola, gunner, driver, and loader in their sort of usual positions as well. Now, armor wise, when I can find the stats for it, I did have this up, but it's decided to go. There we go, off my phone. So, armour-wise, we're looking at 100mm on the front, 40 on the sides, and 30 on the rear. But as we know, that's never quite the full story. And while I'm here as well, while I've got it up, you get a 50% bonus silver percentage and a 15% XP bonus as well, which is, again, is, you know, your sort of kind of standard for your tier 8s. So, 100mm. Let's start from this end. So you do have the very strong, I wouldn't say gun mantle, it's almost like a breech plate, you know, it's sort of in front of the breech. So that bit is very strong, but again, it's not something that's probably going to get hit particularly often. Your 121 to 161 marker is what I would call your sort of gun mantle, even though it is kind of mantleless. It's that sort of cone part at the base of your gun there, where it goes into the actual hull. Now your 100mm is just the upper sloped part, so you can see that V shape that the gun is actually mounted in. The sides of that are 100mm, and then you've got those sloped parts going back up as well and into the commander's hatch, so they are your 100mm. So it's not your upper glacis. However, your upper glacis is slightly better sloped, or slightly more sloped than that part we're looking at the moment. So even though it is a bit thinner, again, it can bounce a few shots, but it's not something that you want to rely on. And again, it's mostly sort of gives you better protection against your lower tiers, which is, you know, understandable, as a lot of these tanks do. 71 to 91 you can see is the lower glacis. A small patch just behind that sort of mantle cone, and then you've got the, what I'm assuming is the rangefinder on top as well, either sides. Now, you do still have that rangefinder like you do on the Tech Tree one, but it is a bit smaller, and again, it is quite well sloped, and if you're using a ridgeline, it is a small target and quite hard to see. 51 to 71, now that's your upper glacis, so there is quite a difference between that and, you know, your 100mm, but as I said before, it is quite well sloped. I have bounced shots off there, but again, I can't reiterate, you know, don't kind of rely on that. And then you've got the, I suppose, the upper superstructure cheeks or shoulders, if you want to call it that. They are also, you know, falling into that bracket, but again, from the front, very, very well angled, and do bounce quite a few shots off there. Even though they are thin, it is, you know, at an extreme angle. 31 to 55, well, that's your extra tracks on the front. It does act as an amount of extra spaced armor, so at least 31mm, which is nice. And I don't know if that has saved me yet, but I'm sure it will probably be one of those things where just randomly at some point a shell will bounce off it, and I'll be like, wow, I'm really glad that it's got that extra track there. You've also got the sides of the hull, the sides of the tank behind the tracks as well, I suppose the size of the superstructure, I should say. And you've got the central part of that V that the gun is actually mounted in, and again, it is very thin, but it is very, very, very well sloped. I suppose if you've got a big enough gun, you probably could overmatch it, but if you've got a gun that big, you're probably just going to be able to go straight through the front of this thing anyway, so I wouldn't really worry too much about that. If you haven't got a big enough gun, again, with most TDs, try and track it and get around the back of it. Or another little tip I like to use, and it does kind of work, although sometimes, you know, it does go a little bit right, is get right up behind them and drive forwards into their back end and just keep following them front of your tank into their back end, and there's not much they can actually do about it. 21 to 30, just the last part of the upper superstructure there, the upper sides, the rear of it, the back of the commander's hatch and the back of that rangefinder, and the sort of flat mid glacis, lower glacis, whatever you want to call it, the engine plate at the back there. And then your 1 to 21 is actually your tracks. The sandbags on the back do act as spaced armour, small amount of spaced armour as well. I suppose the rear sloped part of the engine deck, if you want to call it that, and some little bits just inside the gun there you can see, just around the sort of breech and behind the gun cone at the back. So that's about it really. I think we'll just get into the gameplay, and I'll try and sort of talk a little bit more about how it handles over the gameplay. So there you go. Right, so here we are for the gameplay portion of the review, and as always, I know I said I didn't want to spend too long in the garage, and spent a good 16 minutes there, so again, some things never change. And yeah, still just feeling a bit of trepidation over this review, with it being the first one that I've done in a while. So, the match I'm in, it's a tier 10 match. This does see up to tier 10, and yep, this is a tier 10 match on Kasserine, as you can see. I am platooned up with my wife again in the T32. However, not with her rubbish, same as the T29 pen anymore, but with the 218 that it got since the buff, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Now, I know I've mentioned it a few times before that, but as I said, I have enjoyed this tank, I have enjoyed this TD. I'm not... it's not so much that I dislike fixed turret TDs or anything like that. I just literally have never really played in them since the game came out. You know, I went so far down the German line, but got to the Jagdpanther and just stayed there for ages, and then finally sort of went back to it, and it did take me a while to get out of that. So yeah, it's nothing about disliking them or anything like that. It is just literally I don't play them very often, so I am a bit of a novice when it comes to these, and I think I am getting better at them, but if a TD novice like myself can do alright in one of these things, then you guys out there that play TDs a lot and they're your sort of favourite class, you should be able to do some pretty good stuff with this. And obviously, you know, it does have its downsides. The shell velocity is fantastic though. I forgot to mention it in the garage, but your standard rounds, your APCR rounds, get just over 1500 meters a second shell velocity, so it is a very good velocity on your shells. It means you don't have to lead tanks as much as you do, in the moving. You don't have to lead them as much to actually hit them. It's sort of, pull the button, hit kind of thing, or pull the trigger, hit, should I say, not pull the button. So I'm just working this ridgeline a bit, popping up and down. If I get spotted, I'm pulling back and just waiting until my sixth sense goes off again before popping back up, and just trying to basically keep this side of the map covered. Now the .30 accuracy is a brilliant accuracy. A lot of TDs are sort of .35, tier 8 TDs should I say. You're looking around .35 is a really good accuracy, or a decent accuracy on a lot of the tier 8 TDs. So .30 is, it is fantastic. You're talking tier 10 British heavy, accuracy levels here, if not better, I think, than some of those. But there have been times, and I do have to say this, there have been times where it hasn't felt like .30 accuracy, and I don't mean where I've missed moving targets, where it's definitely my error. It's just the odd time where I've thought, I say maybe disagree with that .3 accuracy. I don't think it happened so much in the two matches that I've got here to show you, but there were a couple of matches where I did, question that accuracy. But on the general, it is pretty accurate. I mean, the accuracy, as far as I understand it, and again, this is unless they've changed the way the gameplay mechanics worked, and again, if I am mistaken, please correct me in the comments so I don't mislead anybody. But the way I understand it, the .3 accuracy, or your sort of accuracy in general on the tank. It's not how likely the shell is to deviate from your small aiming circle in the middle, but it's the amount of deviation it could get, if you see what I mean. So it's basically you've got two aiming circles. You've got your big reticle that comes down, and you've got your small dot in the middle. Small dot in the middle is obviously where you're aiming. The larger reticle obviously represents your accuracy. That is where the shell could travel to. So obviously a 0.3 accuracy, your circle is smaller. 0.5 accuracy is a lot bigger. And don't forget that 0.30 is the accuracy, or the, you know, average accuracy, whatever, but that's the accuracy at 100 meters. So obviously at, you know, more than 100 meters, your shell can go further awry. Oh, took a nice bounce there from... was that C-110E5 that bounced? It may have been. He was definitely looking at me. But I definitely heard that ricochet. And I'm just going to wait. I don't really want to keep popping up against him. Like I say, he did bounce. I don't want to push my luck. That could have been a fluke. That could have been the armour. The armour might be strong enough to take that. I very much doubt it, and I'd say that's probably, it was just a fluke as I was pulling back over that ridge. Now, can I hit the Waffenträger? There we go. Get one into the E100, and I did panic a little bit because I thought, I'm going to hit him and then is he going to start paying me attention? But he wasn't. He carried on going for our E100. Made sure he took me down, and in fact he did take me down before I managed to take him out and reload. And at first I did think that the reload on this was a bit low, or a bit long, should I say, for a 105. But then when I took into account, you know, when I took into account the fact that it's got 260 pen, the fact that it does have 390 damage on this 105 as opposed to 320, which a lot of 105s do at tier 8, it does kind of make sense with that slightly slow loading time. But as you can see, you know, it zips about. It doesn't have much trouble on the ridge lines. If you get spotted, it's just about quick enough to get out of there as long as you've got somewhere just to dip into. But this is kind of how I like my fix, I think, anyway. You know, I think that's what I've discovered about myself, although I do really throw myself for a loop here. Stopping on top of that ridge, that was a big mistake, and it was only the fact that my tracks ate a couple of those shots that saved me there. That very well could have been the end of the match. But I think after playing in stuff like this, I do have the SU-122-44, had it for a while. I would love the Yahtzee, you know, the Japanese, not Japanese, the Chinese premium TD, or the, you know, even the standard version, the WZ, whatever it is from the tech tree. I do kind of like that tank, and that seems to be how I've discovered that I kind of like my TDs, like this. So nippy, with a fair amount of armour, you know, not too much, and it's like the compromise. The big heavy slow TDs I'm not as keen on because you can get surrounded quite easily and you just can't move out of the way. Yes, they've got decent armour, but they normally have a few weak spots that can be hit fairly easily. ATs with the big cupolas, tortas, big cupola, you know, etc. And then you've got your glass cannons as well, you know, no armour, big massive guns. But I kind of like this combination where I've got nippiness, I've got alright armour that, you know, depending on what match you're in, obviously tier, as I said before, tier 8 you can afford to be a bit more aggressive than you can in tier 9 and 10. But your tier 9 and 10 you can zip about and use its, you know, its concealment and place yourself on the map so that you are at the, you know, the extremes of their view range. Use your teammates to spot for you, but you can get around and get into position. And it's a nice compromise with the gun. It's not the most powerful TD gun, but you know, it's definitely not the worst or the least powerful TD gun on a tier 8. So I just think it's a nice compromise between everything. I guess is what I'm saying. And you know, when I saw this coming out, I really didn't. Honestly, I went into it thinking I'm probably not going to enjoy this because I've not enjoyed any of the French TDs I've been in. And yeah, I was wrong. You know, I'll put my hands up if I'm wrong. You know, there's no point in hiding it, is there, or denying it. If you're wrong, you're wrong. Why not just admit it, learn from it, and move on? But yeah, I didn't have much hope for this, as I said when I first went into it, but I have thoroughly enjoyed it. And there's not, I mean, obviously, you know, I've missed the last 4 months, but even looking at what's come out then, the 2 monster tanks, which just appeared to be reskins of the Mutant 6 and the 58 Mutts, and you know, there was the Citadel Tiger, there's the Void-Tech, which is, you know, essentially a Panther. There's the Absolution, which is, you could argue, is essentially a Panther and things like that. But even in the past year, I can't remember having as much fun. Definitely not in a TD. I've not had this much fun in a TD since I probably played in the Yahtzee. But even that I found a little bit more frustrating than this, because the armour, it does have a better slope, I think, on the front. Well, I don't know. It could be argued that the Yahtzee kind of has better sloping on the front. I don't know, actually. Now I've said that, I think I'm even doubting myself. But anyway, the Yahtzee, the armour, the physical armour, I think it's on the front of the Yahtzee, isn't quite as much as the sort of main body of this part. But it's definitely not got the speed that this does. This does have that better power to weight ratio. And I mean, I did have fun in the Minuteman, I must admit. I've picked that up and bought it. Well, obviously you saw it in... if you watched yesterday's video, you saw it in there. But yeah, this is, I think, the most fun I've had in a TD in a while. And in a way, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Canonian Jagdpanzer, you know, that Tier 8 German premium TD. It kind of does remind me a little bit of that, but I think that's... again, off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure that's got a better power to weight ratio. It's definitely got worse armour, and the gun, although faster firing, is you know, 90mm. And I don't know. I think it'd be a toss-up between the guns, but it does kind of feel a little bit reminiscent of the Canonian in a few ways. But obviously, this has better frontal armour. But there you go, got taken out just at the last minute. It was hit and miss whether I'd actually get that that griller. I was thinking, if I can hit him, bang on. If I can hit him and kill him, that's awesome. If not, I'll at least attract his attention. He'll fire at me, and one of the other teammates can take him out, because he's then got to reload. And that's what happened. So I threw myself up as cannon fodder, or potential cannon fodder, just at the end of the game there. But quite happy that I came out with an ace in that. But again, I don't put too much stock in ace tankers when these tanks have first come out, because it's obviously set a little bit lower as people get in them and do some really ridiculous damage. Your level of damage that you need to do for an ace tanker definitely moves up. So, next match. You've seen Tier 10. Came out with an ace tanker. Quite happy with that one. Didn't think I'd do very well in a Tier 10 match in it. But I'd like to say I think I'm starting to get a handle on this TD thing, this fixed TD thing. Well, maybe not the fixed TD thing. I'm getting a handle on this tank, this fixed TD. But anyway, Tier 8 match, and am I platooned up? I am. I'm platooned up with my lovely wife again. I've been doing a lot of platooning this week with her. She's not actually played it for a long time either, and she's sort of got back into it along with me. And it's you know, taking her mind off things, and she's been enjoying it. So I'm pretty sure she's in a T32 again. I didn't really check at the beginning, but we've gone separate ways. She's headed up towards... is she on the Banana Road? Possibly, below the hill. Again, small preview window, small minimap, and being colourblind, I do struggle to tell the difference between my platoon mate's colour and the rest of the team colour. So I'm not entirely sure where she is, but she's over there somewhere. Again, I wasn't going to come over here, but I decided to, because there wasn't really anybody coming down here. And that first light tank that got taken out, as I fired, you saw him hit that step and flick up. My shell went under him, put the medium down here with me, took him out. And that down there, if you're interested, was actually a Lycan shooting at me. And obviously watched where his traces were coming from, put a shot into him, and he disappeared. There's the little bugger. But he was bouncing off the front of this, and again, you know, some of that armour looks pretty thin, physical sort of thickness wise, but it's that angling that makes all the difference. Now that's a Lycan dealt with. I'm not spotted, so I'm going to wait here. There is a medium down there on the enemy team, I think. We do have some guys going down there. There he is, still not spotted as of yet. Now I've been seen. Now that's T-3488. He does manage to do some damage to me. And again, please don't forget this is the press account, so this is, you know, a 17 skill crew or whatever. They are just standard consumables on here, because, you know, why sort of mar the results even more, because obviously skills on the crew will affect some of the reload and everything else on here. So I didn't want to stick any like premium consumables on to affect that anymore. Excuse me, just having a drink of my coffee, that's right. I sat here having my coffee. It has started raining actually since I did the garage part of this review, so I don't know if you can hear that on the microphone again. If you do, I apologise. Now, that was that an SU-76I? Or an ISU? I couldn't quite see what that was. Now, at the time, regardless of what that is, or what that was, at the time, I was pretty sure it was, and I don't know why. I think I was just not concentrating a little bit. For some reason, I had it into my head that it was an ISU 152, and that I was in a lot of trouble. Now I'm in a bit more bother. I did manage to hit that T-32 through the turret, and in fact, it looked like he possibly got the stock turret in a 19mm. Oh, I don't know. What was that just hit me? Now, what's over there? There's the T-32. Or something else. Now, I'm not sure if he hit that T-32's commander's hatch or if he has got the stock turret. If he has got the stock turret, they're not particularly strong, the stock turret on the T-32. The upgraded turret is, however. And if I remember rightly, I think you tell the difference between... They've got different shaped gun mantles. And again, if I remember rightly, the square-shaped gun mantle is the thicker, the more powerful one, and if it's got the rounded gun mantle, it's a lot weaker. And now I've said that about the gun mantle, I've probably got it the wrong way around. But anyway, the T-32 is now facing me down. He's, yeah, that looks like the 90mm, I think. In fact, it's got to be, if he's got the stock turret, I'm sure he's got the stock turret. But again, it's been such a while, and, you know, you think you remember things right, and then you get them the wrong way around. But he's the last guy left. Just swung it a bit too much and had to come back again, so I did take another hit there for my trouble. But that's it, that's the match. Done and dusted. So as you can see, as I said before, when you're in tier 8 you can afford to be a little bit more aggressive. I didn't hold out much hope on that map. I hate Himmelsdorf in TDs, in fixed turret TDs, that, you know, unless it's something that's got amazing armour. But again, not too bad, 3,000 damage, quite happy with that, and you can see it earns quite a bit of silver, so yeah. There you go, the new French TD. I kind of like it. Whether or not it's worth, you know, sort of sticking your hand in your pocket for it, that's entirely up to you. I can only give you an opinion. But anyway, hopefully that review's gone okay and I've not done bad. But I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments anyway. So until the next video, take care out there and I'll catch you next time. See you later.